Making headline in the broadcast tonight. President Park and the new floor leaders of the three major political parties will hold a meeting on a regular basis from now on. It's what the leaders agreed on following the president's first face-to-face with the new political leaders of the 20th National Assembly. Korea's central bank holds its base interest rate steady for an 11th straight month as a newly composed board opts to monitor economic data and the progress of corporate restructuring before changing policy. Over in Brazil, the new acting president calls for unity in that country, while the leader just suspended by the Senate vows to fight what she calls a coup. Deep political polarization in Latin America's most populous nation. News Center begins right now. It's 9 in Washington, 2 in the afternoon in London, and 10 on a Friday evening here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to our viewers all across the globe. You're watching Arirang News Center. A breakthrough in starting fresh relations between the presidential office and the new National Assembly. Well, in their first meeting since April's general election, President Park and the new representatives of the three major political parties met at the nation's top office today, where their two sides seem to have made some notable agreements. First, our Song Ji-sun from the presidential office of Cheongwade.
A handful of agreements reached in less than 90 minutes. The first meeting between President Park Geun-hye and the new floor leaders and chief policymakers of the nation's three main political parties began in a friendly mood and ended with some quite notable agreements. First off, the president and the leaders of the three parties are set to meet on a quarterly basis to boost communication and coordinate policies. Moreover, such meetings will be convened whenever deemed necessary. On North Korea policies, the president stressed the need to resolve Pyongyang's nuclear issue as its ongoing provocations continue to pose a serious threat, and she vowed to share more information on the nation's security conditions with the parliament. In regards to the economy and the people, the finance minister will soon hold a meeting with chief policymakers of the three parties to check up on the livelihoods of the people and devise measures to boost domestic sentiment. Meanwhile, the ruling Saenuri party suggested that the administration creates a new post of State Minister for Political Affairs, to which Park answered the top office will comprehensively review the proposal, as that will require revision of related laws. Friday's meeting was a pledge from Park to better communicate with lawmakers, since cooperation from opposition parties is key to carrying out her policy initiative, especially with a three-way parliament in which the ruling party no longer has a majority following last month's general election.
With more channels of communication established between the top office and the parliament, the two sides took the first step towards cooperative politics ahead of the 20th National Assembly's launch on May 30th. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Let's now head over to the National Assembly. Our parliamentary correspondent Park Ji-won is standing by. Ji-won, how do the three main political parties feel about their meeting with the president?
Well, Kanyang, the overall consensus here at the Assembly is that today's meeting went pretty smoothly. While the opposition parties didn't quite satisfy with today's results solely, they at least rated highly President Park's willingness to cooperate and respect the parliament by holding regular meetings. During a press briefing held at the parliament, ruling Saenuri Party's floor leader Chung Jin-seok said President Park and political leaders talked frankly over diverse issues ranging from the economy and the people's livelihoods to national security, confirming the participants' willingness to communicate on a regular basis.
Personally, I am very satisfied with the meeting. We were assured that there will be a possibility of cooperation among parties.
The main opposition Minju Party of Korea said it did its best to deliver its view on various matters to the president, from how the government should handle the recent deaths caused by a toxic humidifier sterilizer and the chronic budget problems of the nation's free childcare services, to the matter of revising a special law on the 2014 Seoul ferry disaster. The Liberal Party said the recent election results that stripped the ruling party from parliamentary majority show that the public is not content with the government's current policies. But the party's new floor leader Woo Sang-ho took a rather smoother approach, expecting next meetings.
We couldn't agree on issues like inter-Korean relations, nor the special law on the Seoul ferry, but I didn't expect to get satisfactory results in the first meeting. We will continue to voice our opinions through the next regular meetings.
Meanwhile, the minor opposition People's Party floor leader Park Ji-won evaluated the meeting positively.
President Park laughed when I told her that it was me who criticized the president the most for not being communicative enough. And she told us she will better communicate and cooperate with the parliament and respect the will of the public. I think it is a considerable achievement.
While the People's Party appreciates President Park's more open-minded approach to the parliament, the centrist party said there are some issues that the party considers as its future tasks, but that the president didn't quite specify her stance over them yet. Kanyang?
Well, like the president said, this is just the first step in many more ahead, and we'll have to wait and see whether a healthy relationship and better collaboration can be established between the nation's top office and the parliament. Thank you, Ji-won, for that report. Now, Korea's central bank kept its key interest rate steady at 1.5% for the 11th consecutive month. The decision comes amid mounting pressure on the Bank of Korea to lend a stronger hand to the government's corporate restructuring drive. Our Shin Se-min takes a closer look at the BOK's May rate decision and the driving force behind it.
The Bank of Korea held its benchmark rate steady at 1.5%, a record low for 11 straight months. In its first monetary policy meeting with 4 new board members, the central bank cited a modest uptick in global oil prices as a reason to have more confidence, adding that the current monetary policy is accommodative enough to support expansion.
Despite lingering uncertainties from in and outside of the country, the BOK has taken into account the fact that the domestic economy will moderately improve, and it will monitor any economic changes coming its way.
Those changes will include the government-led corporate restructuring process. The BOK faces mounting pressure to provide more liquidity to 2 state-run banks burdened by debt from ailing shipping and shipbuilding companies. The top central banker said that while the BOK is closely cooperating with related authorities to facilitate the restructuring drive, measures should only be put into motion if the central bank's fiscal soundness can be preserved. Experts say that caution is required, but also essential is seeing the restructuring through.
The country's potential of economic growth largely depends on how the corporate restructuring goes. Industrial reforms will be based on this. So it's a significant and inevitable process that needs to be dealt with.
Considering this, analysts say that given the BOK's determination to ensure it sees no losses in financing the restructuring drive, the government should not rule out the option of a supplementary budget to give more firepower to the country's floundering industries. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Well, speaking of corporate restructuring, a major shipbuilding association in this country has turned to the government for help. The Labor Ministry is set to review its application for a new program that could provide benefits to both those companies' management as well as employees. Our Kim Jung-soo has more on the fallen Titan's desperate call for aid.
The Korea Offshore and Shipbuilding Association has filed for support under a special government program amid the prolonged slump in the shipbuilding sector. The Labor Ministry said Friday the association is seeking support as a special employment support industry under a new government program. The association represents Korea's major shipbuilders, including the Big Three, Hyundai Heavy Industries, Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, and Samsung Heavy Industries. The news comes as industry insiders project that the sector, which commands a workforce of over 200,000 people, will lay off more than 30,000 people this year, with contractors shedding more jobs to the Big Three shipyards. The expected layoffs are primarily the result of widespread industry losses stemming from a drop in demand, construction delays, and order cancellations. Sinking global oil prices, which have fallen from an average of $100 per barrel to $40 over the past year, have especially contributed to the drop in demand for offshore facilities. Daewoo Shipbuilding, which focuses on building offshore plants for international clients, currently has 4 projects valued at a combined total of nearly 7 trillion won, or roughly $7 billion, suspended indefinitely. The Labor Ministry launched the support program in December, and if approved, the shipbuilders will become the first beneficiaries. The program authorizes financial support for the companies, and workers who are laid off can receive unemployment benefits for a maximum of 270 days. The actual amount of monthly benefits will also increase to 60% of the original pay rate, from 50% under previous programs. The ministry says it will now send officials to Geoje and Ulsan to evaluate the association's support claim. Kim Jung-soo, Arirang News.
Well, a rapid follow-up to yesterday's strategic meeting for science and technology development, the Korean government unveiled measures to up the nation's ICT export volume to $210 billion from a bit over $126 billion last year by year 2020. Our tech correspondent, Kim Ji-yeon.
During Friday's meeting led by Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn, 6 items, including the so-called K-ICT Strategy 2016 agenda, were considered and voted on. Under the strategy, the country plans to strengthen the links between 9 existing strategic projects seen as essential to the 4th Industrial Revolution.
Korea's technology and infrastructure related to the 4th Industrial Revolution are still in their infant stages. The growth of new products and services in the field is limited, mainly due to regulatory barriers. In response, the government will establish strategic plans surrounding ICT to respond promptly to global changes.
The officials at the meeting also revised Korea's previous ICT strategy to include artificial intelligence and virtual reality technology. By 2019, the country aims to apply deep machine learning technology to systems for countering cyber terror threats. And by 2020, the technology will be used for smart systems for medical research. The government also has detailed plans to acquire smart software, including the linguistically smart exobrain and the visually intelligent Deep View, by 2018 in time for the Pyeongchang Olympics, which is seen as an opportunity to promote Korea's advanced ICT exports. By 2020, the country aims to increase Korea's ICT export volume to $210 billion from $126.4 billion last year. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
It's been more than 2 weeks since the UN Security Council began considering a press statement condemning North Korea for its test of a mid-range ballistic missile last month. Well, many have begun wondering why the prolonged delay. The latest remarks out of Russia adds weight to speculation that Moscow is holding up the process. Connie Kim delves deeper into the issue.
Russia has been pressuring North Korea to refrain from military activity and has called on South Korea and the U.S. to do the same as it holds up adoption of a UN Security Council press statement condemning North Korea's launch of mid-range ballistic missiles last month. The statement has been delayed for more than 2 weeks. Speaking at a regular briefing on Thursday, Russia's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said Moscow supports the current UN sanctions against Pyongyang for its nuclear and missile launches. She added all related nations should avoid aggravating tensions on the Korean peninsula and instead follow a path of political and diplomatic resolution. Her comments add weight to the growing speculation that Russia wants to add content to the UN statement that specifically calls for Seoul and Washington to refrain from military action, namely its annual joint military drills. Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vitaly Churkin, had previously said Moscow proposed the same, leading to assumptions that Russia is trying to link North Korea's provocations to the military exercises between South Korea and the U.S. Considering that it has been more than 2 weeks since the North launched 2 Busan missiles in late April, some are voicing their concern that a press statement from the UN Security Council is unlikely.
Russia and China are trying to turn the current situation towards dialogue, so additional sanctions or a statement condemning the North does not look easy.
There have been 5 press statements this year condemning North Korea's provocations, pushing up tensions in the region. A growing number of analysts in Seoul say China and Russia are concerned about the mounting pressure on the North, which could lead to more instability in Pyongyang. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The White House says U.S. President Barack Obama's upcoming visit to Hiroshima aims to commemorate all innocent victims from the atomic bomb dropped by the U.S. at the end of World War II. Well, hundreds of thousands of lives were lost from the blast, but not all were Japanese. A good portion of them were Koreans living in the Japanese city at the time. Our Hwang Ho-jun sheds light on the Korean victims of the bombing.
After Imperial Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941, the U.S. initiated the so-called Manhattan Project to create the first nuclear weapons. 3 years of research and development led to the first successful nuclear bomb test in the desert of New Mexico in the U.S. In August of 1945, the Allies dropped 2 atomic bombs in the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, respectively, forcing Japan to surrender unconditionally and thus ending World War II. Now, President Barack Obama is scheduled to visit Hiroshima 71 years after the war ended to become the first incumbent U.S. president to do so. And as Obama's upcoming visit has been stirring controversy in and out of the White House, the White House Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes stated that the visit is not a form of apology, but an opportunity to honor the memory of all innocent lives that were lost during the war. Hundreds of thousands of people perished due to the atomic blast, followed by their aftermath. And among those victims, there were tens of thousands of Korean nationals who were residing in Japan at the time. According to data retrieved by the Korean government in the 1970s, more than 40,000 Koreans by the A-bombs, with 30,000 more suffering from the exposure to radiation. Also, there are over 7,500 second-generation victims to date. As Washington continues to stress that the symbolic significance of the historic Obama visit to Hiroshima is not a form of apology, it remains to be seen if all the victims, regardless of nationality, are indeed comprehensively commemorated. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Korea has a special day put aside to show appreciation for the nation's teachers. It's earmarked for May 15th every year and includes celebrations to honor the educators for their special contributions to the community in general. A national ceremony took place earlier today as May 15th falls on a Sunday this year, and President Park Geun-hye was also at the event to commemorate and honor the spirit of education. Arirang News' Oh Jung-hee has more on this day observed by Koreans for more than 5 decades now.
The world celebrates Teachers' Day on October 5th every year, and Korea does on May 15th by singing songs and giving carnations to teachers. These gestures are considered as small tokens of appreciation and respect for the people who shared their knowledge and compassion with their students in both good times and bad. The date in Korea coincides with King Sejong's birthday, as he is considered by the Korean people as a true teacher for his creation of Korean alphabet Hangul. This one special day for Korean teachers was first designated in 1963, 5 years after young members of Korea's Red Cross began visiting teachers who fell ill or were retired. In honor of the day coming up on this Sunday, President Park Geun-hye attended the 35th Teachers' Day ceremony on Friday in downtown Seoul, making her second consecutive visit to the annual ceremony. In her commemorative speech, the president said she very much appreciates the hard work of educators nationwide and asked them to help foster students' dreams and talents. She also put emphasis on the kind of education that leads students to think creatively, saying that this will decide Korea's future and bring about groundbreaking changes for the country. A total of 4,383 exemplary teachers were rewarded with presidential citations and government medals this year, some of whom were present at the ceremony to receive them from the president. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Well, it's been in the news every now and then, and It's true. Koreans have some of the longest working hours in the world. In fact, according to a 2014 statistics by the OECD, they were ranked third amongst the member states for average annual hours actually worked per worker. Now, this is why more Koreans have begun to make the most out of or get most of their other errands done during their lunch break. Our Kim Hae-sang shows us a growing midday trend among office workers here in Korea.
Kim Bum-soo, a man who works in downtown Seoul, says he often uses his lunch break to go shopping.
On weekends, I want to go on dates with my girlfriend or hang out with my family, so I use my lunch break to buy jackets or other things.
This store that just opened last month is the first fashion outlet to open in Seoul's busiest office district of Chonglo to accommodate the growing needs of office workers just like Kim. Compared to other branches, this store offers a greater variety of business attire as its main target customers are office workers. Along the streets of Chonglo, you can find cafes, clothing stores, and cosmetic shops that offer lunchtime promotions for office workers. In addition to retail stores, department stores located in office districts like Chonglo and Gangnam have also seen an uptick in lunchtime sales over the last 5 years.
Private consumption in Korea is on a downturn. It's people in their 30s and 50s who spend the most, so businesses are coming up with various strategies to attract them.
This yoga center offers a class at noon to attract workers who want to exercise during their lunch break.
Most of the students in our noontime class are working women. For their convenience, we offer snacks and lunch after the 40-minute class is over.
As a growing number of Korean office workers try to find a work-life balance and make the most of their free time, it looks like the lunchtime shopping trend will continue. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
If you've been dreaming of strapping on your own Iron Man armor, well, you might get your wish granted sooner than you think. Korean auto giant Hyundai Motor unveiled its very cool robot exoskeleton that the carmaker claims allows the wearer to lift hundreds of kilograms. Hyundai sees the exoskeleton as being useful in factories, the military, and in physical rehabilitation in the future. Our Kim Mo-gen has more on what reminds more than a little bit of the suits worn in the Tom Cruise flick Edge of Tomorrow.
Korean auto giant Hyundai Motor Group has unveiled photos of robot exoskeletons through its blog post on Friday after 6 years of research and development in the area. Just like in the famous Hollywood blockbuster Iron Man, the wearable robotic device is used to give the controller extra strength and assistance. Hyundai said that the new technology can be applied in many areas, including national defense, production, and even physical rehabilitation. The exoskeleton still under development can make it possible for the wearer to lift an object weighing over 60 kilograms and assist him or her in physical movements.
To help the people walk while going upstairs and downstairs, and just for the better life quality.
Major large firms in and out of the country are also striving to develop and make use of the wearable robot technology in various industries. Kim Mo-gen, Arirang News.
Every day we learn of more inconvenient truth behind the toxic humidifier sterilizer case. A biomedical expert let the media know of a 2012 experiment that he conducted, which points to the high probability of the base materials in the humidifier sterilizers in question causing fatal damage not only to the lungs but other organs as well. Our Lee Min-hyun explores the adverse effects that the deadly material could have on our body.
Scientists put zebrafish in water containing a certain amount of the industrial chemicals known as PHMG and PGH, substances that have made headlines for their toxicity, which killed numerous lives. After an hour has passed, all the fish were dead. This experiment was conducted in 2012 by the Department of Medical Biotechnology at Yeongnam University to test what other adverse effects PHMG and PGH have on the human body. And new light is being shed upon this test, as these are chemicals contained in disinfectant products by oxyrekitbenkiser, which induced numerous deaths and permanent bodily damage. At the time of the experiment, scientists examined the heart tissue of the dead fish and discovered that they died of cardiac fibrosis, a condition where the heart becomes stiff and eventually stops working. But experts add that heart conditions are not the only problem.
Besides cardiac disorders, inflammation was spotted in blood vessels as well, which is an indication that the toxic material can travel to other parts of the body, causing serious damage in other organs.
Other similar tests were also conducted back then on mice by the Korea Conformity Laboratories, a subsidiary organization of the Trade Ministry, where 10 out of 20 mice died after inhaling the toxic chemicals. Health organizations say, however, that even if customers have known that these chemicals could cause serious harm to their health, people would not realize that they were using products containing them in the first place.
Companies are refusing to label their products with specific ingredients, saying that it's confidential business information. Customers have no option but to buy products they are not really sure it's safe enough to use.
Meanwhile, investigations on the Oxy scandal are underway, with the nation's prosecution having already accused 4 people, including the former CEO of Oxy Korea, of professional negligence. Whether to approve the arrest warrant will be decided within Friday. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Brazil's interim president, Michel Temer, is calling for his country to have confidence that it will overcome its deep economic crisis. Bruce Harrison joins me live in the studio. Now, Bruce, what was the interim president's first move since the Senate suspended President Dilma Rousseff?
Kanyang, he didn't waste any time appointing a new cabinet with the aim of encouraging more market-friendly policies in the country. And this is just his first step in what Michel Temer hopes will turn the country's economy around.
Well, many Brazilians are still on the streets protesting over the country's political crisis. Now, what is Temer telling the people?
Well, simply right now, he's basically just saying, trust me. But early polling shows that he's really got a long way to go. His approval rating right now stands at just 2%, and his disapproval rating at 58%.
My first word to the Brazilian people is the word trust. Trust in the values that form the character of our people, the vitality of our democracy. Trust in the recuperation of our country's economy.
Temer said it's crucial to rescue Brazil's credibility to boost employment and investment in the country. He's also denied allegations from Rousseff's Workers' Party and its allies that he would cut government social programs. On Thursday, the Senate voted to put President Rousseff on trial over accusations she broke budget rules ahead of her 2014 re-election. In a speech after her suspension, she vowed to continue to fight to regain her power, though political analysts say it's unlikely she'll be acquitted. Her supporters have criticized the impeachment proceedings as a corrupt seizure of power. Allegations have surfaced that at least 15 Russian Olympic medal winners at the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics were part of a state-run doping program. The New York Times reports that former director of Russia's anti-doping laboratory said Russian anti-doping experts and members of the intelligence services secretly replaced urine samples tainted by performance-enhancing drugs with clean urine. The allegations deal a setback for the World Anti-Doping Agency, which was meeting in Canada when the news broke.
So when people cheat, and above all, when it is institutionalized in any way, whether it's a sport or whether it's a country, then it is extremely irritating. But there's no point in just being irritated. You better do something about it.
A Kremlin spokesman dismissed the allegations as treacherous slander. Russian athletes have also come out and said they competed honestly.
Well, Bruce, over in the U.S., the battle has intensified over transgender restroom use in schools in the U.S. And now the White House says it has issued guidelines.
Exactly. What the White House plans to do, the Obama administration is going to tell every public school district in the United States to allow transgender students to use the bathrooms that match their gender identity. This move comes as the Obama administration and North Carolina battle in federal court over a state law passed in March, which limits public bathroom access for transgender people.
Some of you have lived freely for decades, and others of you are still wondering how you can possibly live the lives that you were born to lead.
The letter does not have the force of law, but implicitly threatens lawsuits or possible loss of federal aid for those who don't abide.
So, Bruce, essentially, the letter demands that students identifying with a sex, regardless of their birth gender, can use the restroom of their choice.
I think that's what it says. I mean, it says schools have to treat students according to their gender identity without requesting some sort of medical certificate or a birth certificate to prove something.
Right. I mean, recent polling shows that more Americans are in favor of students using restrooms of their biological sex. So it seems like Obama has an uphill battle.
It's going to be interesting to see how they dissect this letter and the language and apply it to different schools. It's a definitely uphill battle.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see. Thank you, Bruce, for that.
No problem.
Well, another festive weekend is right upon us here in Korea, with Buddha's birthday falling tomorrow and Teacher's Day on Sunday. So for more on that and the weather outlook for the upcoming weekend, let's go straight over to our Lee Ji-hyun at the Weather Center. Ji-hyun, it looks like we'll have another busy weekend.
That's right, Ganyang. And the famous Seoul Lantern Festival at Cheonggyecheon Stream 봉은사인 조계사 Temple, which has been running since last Friday, will be coming to a grand final soon with more events in store.
Well, that sounds just perfect. Tell us about that. Hope the weather won't let anybody down. How is it looking?
Well, first of all, the High Seoul Bike Parade will take place on Sunday between 6 to 10 a.m., departing from Gwanghamun Square all the way to the World Cup Park. So roads will be partially blocked during the parade. And the marathon is scheduled same on Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m., with participants running the 10 kilometers that go Sangsu Station to Yeouido Park with a partial road restrictions as well. And weather-wise, here in Seoul, tomorrow will be as nice as today, but higher UV levels are expected. And on Sunday, rain is in the forecast for the western parts of the country before spreading to the entire nation, and it's likely to linger until Monday morning. And moving on to tomorrow's temperature readings, daily low here in Seoul will start out at 14 degrees Celsius, while Daegu will kick off at 11. And as for the daily highs, Seoul will top out at 26 degrees Celsius, but Busan and Jeju will have breezier conditions, getting up to 22 and 23 degrees Celsius. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
And that is our broadcast on this Friday night. I'm Moon Ganyang, and guess what? You just made through the one and only Friday the 13th of this year. And if you want to beat superstition with your religious faith, and if that happens to be Buddhism, well, happy Buddhist birthday to all of you for tomorrow. Thank you for staying with us, and we'll see you next week on Monday. For our viewers in other parts of the world, have a good one. For those of you in Korea and across Asia, a good night from Seoul.